Hi, I'm Daz, and on the bench today is something that's scared me off for 4 years, and that is a Roebuck RK3. Not only have I got this machine, I've got a chassis out of a broken machine as well. That machine was so full of woodworm, it looked like, well, a dartboard that had been in a pub for about 20 years, so yeah, you know. I have got another chassis, but that is a 4-track chassis. This is a 2-track machine. These are a 3-motor machine, and they're built in a very peculiar way. I've shied away from working on this, so I'm hoping that with this one and the chassis I've got, I might have enough parts to do something with this, hopefully at last. Yeah, it may well be quite fun. This is the side panel. There's an on-off switch. There's a monitor, tone, gram gain and volume. It is possible to mix gram with microphone, which is interesting. The monitor is on the output valve because this model is capable of doing monitoring. So the output valve is not used as a bias oscillator, so that's a little positive about it. You've got your input here for an external amp and an external loudspeaker which disconnects the internal one, as well as the mic and gram inputs, so you're pretty well covered with this one. I'm quite impressed with the amount of inputs it has. Just looking round the back, there's a cubby hole for the mains cable which isn't there, so I assume it's tucked up in the unit. There's a voltage change switch on the power transformer, and I can also see a valve half out of its socket, and I think that's the rectifier valve. The lid is removable. It's got non-captive lid hinges, which is good. Nice elliptical speaker grill, it looks very nice, on the side of the unit. This is the spare chassis that I have. You can see the switch there, and the head's connected as well, so this is a 4-track version of the one I'm going to be working on. I really do like that pinch roller. This is the spare chassis, and I expect to see the same more or less when I get into the other chassis. Okay, there's 2 real motors, both synchronous. Capstan motor synchronous. This is the power supply. The main part of the power supply is the transformer, the rectifier valve, and the main smoothing is located here. There's some extra smoothing in this can here. Here's top view of the Roebuck. Conventional rewind, play, record, stop buttons. Interesting, stop button is red. Normally you'd expect that to be the record button, wouldn't you? There's 3 speeds, including 7.5 inches per second, right down to 1 7/8, so you've got 3 speeds. There is a magic eye type valve in here for the recording level, and there's also what's left of the microphone, but it looks like all the bits are here, assuming the crystal mic actually does still function, so I should take that away. There's also a pair of real hubs that undo. There we go. I've got those. I think I stole them off the other chassis actually. There is a pause control, so yeah, it's what you'd call a basic tape recorder. Now there is a superimpose button. What that does is it turns the erase head off so that you can do sound on sound, as they call it, and that's what that's there for. Well, I guess I'm going to have to get it to bits carefully and find somewhere to store the parts, because I haven't got a lot of room in here at the moment. I haven't most of the time, but yeah, this is something I've been putting off for some while. Clydesite, Tim from Clydesite, has done an excellent series of videos on this machine, and I think he called it the inside out upside down machine, and yeah. Okay, here's the machine with the lid removed. Well, the plastic parts, most of them. I've still got to remove this. There's the magic eye. Look at the size of this resistor for the superimposed switch. That is big, isn't it? That is massive. There must be a fair bit of power going through that array's head. Interestingly round shaped heads and a very, very, very large roller. And I like that. You know, rather than little thin caps, and there's a huge great roller here. I wonder if that means you get better traction. There is some ply in that pinch roller, so that's not too bad. All the pads are here and intact. Just a close-up of the head area. That's superimposed switch. And you can see the interesting shape of the heads. Here's the guides. It looks like there's a little bit of wear on that guide, and a little bit of wear on that guide. Heads, doesn't really look too much wear on them, so this is obviously in a little bit of use to see wear on the guides. But you know, you never know what you're going to get with something like this. It's going to hopefully have been used. There's the bearing for the top part of the flywheel. And now you can see it stripped right down to its full state. No mechanics, they're all on the other side. A lot of reel-to-reels when you do this, there's a lot of stuff going on at the top, but not on this one. One interesting thing I've noticed is that spool hub appears to be higher. I'm not sure why. You can't see it from the angle you're looking at. I'm not quite sure why that is. One thing I've also noticed is there should be some screws here and some mounting rubbers that it sits on, but I don't appear to have those, so that's interesting. I definitely saw them on Clyde Sight's video, so sort of slightly puzzled what is going on there, but yeah, okay. Next thing is to carefully take it out of this box, and this weighs half a ton, so this is not going to be fun. Right, here's the inside of this chassis on this one. It looks interesting. It looks a bit different to my spare chassis that I've got. So, rewind motor for the rewind spool. Fast forward motor, it's got multiple connections to it because I guess it has to do 2 speeds. The main capstan motor, and that physically looks a thicker motor, higher powered motor, so that's for the capstan. Drives the flywheel. What have we got in here valve wise? Right, over here is the main power supply. They've put it nice distance away from here, that's good. There's an EZ80 rectifier, and there's 2 50 microfarad capacitors in here. Dual section, so there's a resistor in between for smoothing. There's another multiple section capacitor that's just full of 8 microfarad capacitors, that's for additional smoothing. Valve wise, there's an ECC83, that is a dual triode. There is an EL84 and an ECL82. Now the ECL82 and the ECC83 here are the mainstay of the tape recorder. The triode in here and the 2 triodes in here are used for the record playback, microphone, preamp, etc. The output pentode in here drives this transformer and is actually the audio output valve. But this one has got a full valve dedicated to the bias, and that is an EL84. And looking at that, you know, I thought this is a massive valve to have in for bias, isn't it? But then when you look at that 2-watt resistor that is switched in superimpose, it must take one hell of a lot more erasure power to you know, erase half a track of a half-inch tape. So that's something to note. Or do I mean a 1/4 inch tape? I mean a 1/4 inch tape, sorry about that, thinking videotapes. So yeah, so this looks really interesting. There's this massive switch bank here. The record playback is here, and there's a piece of metal to screen it, and now all these switches here are dedicated to switching the motor. Now I have managed to find another diagram of the Roebuck 4 in the radio and television manual from the late 60s. But again, the circuit diagram does not explain how these motors are wired up. So if something goes wrong here, yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. So yeah, I guess that's most of the parts. The pots are all down here in a row and they look very inaccessible for cleaning purposes. Oh goody. There is a mains cable on mine. Let's have a look. And yes indeed, it has an earth connection. So my goodness, that cable's thin. It looks like telephone cable. Oh, that wouldn't be allowed today, would it? So yeah, I don't know where to start here. I can see the belt's missing for the tape counter. I have got a bit of one out of the other deck, so I've got something to go on how round it should be. But yeah, I can see some Hunt's electrolytics here. These blue ones, I don't know if they're usually quite good. But yeah, okay, so that's the look at the overview anyway. So here's the speed change switch. There's a little lever here which appears to have like Captain tape on. Here is the idler wheel that makes contact between the drive motor and the flywheel, and that is a really nice flywheel. Really nice. Now here is some electrical switches. These will be for the equalisation. So presumably, depending on where this piece of metal is, when this is rotated, these bias contacts will be made, and they look very dirty, so they're going to need some attention. Also care not to bend them or anything. Yeah, so that's a really nice brass flywheel. I like that. Very nice. Here's a close-up of the switches for the motor, and depending on where I move the light, it might make it clearer or not clearer, but that looks quite a bit of fun in there. Definitely. Oh, this is fun. It certainly is a puzzlement. So I've taken off the fast forward motor. Here is the capstan drive motor, and here's the step shaft for the 3 different speeds. This one's fan cooled, and you can see the laminations on this one is a lot thicker, so this one's a lot more high powered motor. I've taken photographs because otherwise I might get in a muddle. Although I have got the other chassis, it's not absolutely identical. The rubber wheel looks like it's cracked, as is the pot metal, but I'm hoping the one out of the other one will be in a better shape. So anyway, that's my first part of disassembly. Well, that's kind of interesting. They seem to have got like Captain tape on things. Perhaps that's used instead of a lubricant. Anyway, my drive wheel has got pot metal cracking. So that ain't a lot of good, is it? I've got to be honest with you. It's also hard as nails. So I'm hoping the one in the other one, ooh, that's cracking. I'm hoping the one in the other unit is in better condition. I've been on a parts raid of the other machine. Now this one has got, yeah, it's got flexibility, look, so that's good. I've also nicked the brakes off that one, and also here's a bit of drive belt so I know what thickness it is, so that's good news. Another thing I discovered, if you take this bracket off, I managed to pull it this way over this bar and managed to drop the drive wheel off, so that was good. So I didn't have to take the rewind motor out. Whether I could get it back in again is another thing, but yeah, that one, look at the pot metal on that, that's really completely naff, isn't it? Okay, so I've got the bits. I don't know what the assembly or disassembly order is going to be. I'm going to need to lubricate this bearing, I guess, that's just out of shot. Also this mechanism that moves the rubber wheel against these 3-step shafts. So you've got 3-step shafts on here, and obviously the reason for that is to get your 3 speeds, a bit like in a record player, a rim drive record player. I suppose that's the closest thing it is. I guess the motors are going to need disassembling and lubricating. I suppose they're dry as a bone. Clean the old grease off. I'm still intrigued by this tape being used. I wonder if it's being used instead of grease. That's an interesting technique. Well, very nice. Ball bearing down the back of the bearing there, and there looks like there's pad there to absorb some moisture, so I'll just clean the shafts up best I can, apply some new lubricant, and I think I'll leave it at that. So yeah, a slightly different motor to what I've seen, but yeah, very nice having a ball bearing in. I don't think I've ever had one of these synchronous motors to bits which has got a ball bearing in. And interestingly, yeah, the way the copper bits to get the extra poles, you know, are done, they're different to what I've seen before. They're like a solid bit slitted in, so very nice. Now given the bottom bearing a clean, and I think you can see the bearing on the flywheel shining there now. My goodness, it was dirty. I think you can see from the cotton bud. So I've done the first motor as well, and that's running a lot better, so I'm getting there, but there's a lot to do. And before I forget to show you, here's the other bearing, the top bearing, and the ball bearing. Try not to let that roll away. Yuck. On the fast forward motor, it's so hard to work there. I couldn't resist the temptation of snipping the wires and taking the motor out, so that's what I'm doing. At least I can get at other things a bit better now. This was probably a very bad idea, but I found out if you take this clip off, you can drop the volume control down and squirt it full of stuff. So the only thing is I've now had to put the tweezers underneath the pot to hold this rod into position while I push it down, but at least I got some into the volume control, and I think that's the most important one that I need to address. Well, my goodness, I've managed to do all three of them. It was very tricky using 2 pairs of tweezers and long nose pliers. I've managed to pop this up on all of them and then put it back. You have to put support underneath to push this pin back up, but because I've got 4 sets of spare pots, so I risked it, but I have managed to get contact cleaner in all of them now, so that's quite good news. Since I've got the motor out, I guess it'd be a good opportunity to just pan the camera around the contacts, and while I've got that out I can give the record playback switching a good hit as well. So here's the circuit board from this side. So there's the bias oscillator coil. That is some of the equalization. That's an equalization coil. That is there on the corner. But nice, horrible black Hunt's capacitor. But yeah, there are a chance just to see the state it's in at the moment. Well, this is going to be my first test of the motor. I haven't got all the screws or everything in, but it'd be a good idea to test the motor. I know I've got spares, but okay, let's see what happens. It's in stop. Right, play. Well, that's good news. The roller's going round, although it is quite easy to stall, which is a shame. So that means I don't have a very good grip, but maybe I need to clean it again. I did put rubber reviver on the drive wheel, but I must admit that's not brilliant because I can stop it. Well, I can't see where it's stalling, but anyway, there's very light tension on that, and just tension on some back tension there. Okay, so it's got to definitely be in stop. Fast forward. That motor is trying to draw a lot of power. I got my dim bulb in and it's just gone very bright. Yeah, it feels quite a bit of torque there. And rewind. yeah, I've dropped down to 141 volts, so these motors are drawing quite a bit of power.